China has a firm grip on the global supply of critical minerals. These minerals are essential. They are the building blocks of modern technology. Semiconductors, batteries, and advanced weaponry all depend on them. China's dominance in this arena gives it significant leverage. The United States and its allies are increasingly uneasy about this dependence. China's control over critical minerals is not accidental. It is the result of a deliberate, decades-long strategy. This strategy has involved securing access to mines, building up massive refining capacity, and investing in technological innovation. China's dominance in this sector has significant implications for the global balance of power. The United States, on the other hand, has neglected its own critical mineral supply chains. Decades of offshoring and a focus on short-term economic gains have left the U.S. vulnerable. The U.S. now relies heavily on China for these essential materials. This dependence poses a serious threat to U.S. economic and national security. China's dominance in critical minerals is not a recent phenomenon. It is the culmination of a strategic vision that dates back to the 1970s. Recognizing early on the importance of these resources for economic and military power, China embarked on a multi-pronged strategy. This strategy has involved both domestic and international initiatives. Domestically, China focused on securing its own mineral resources. It invested heavily in geological exploration and mining. It also developed efficient processing technologies. China aimed to become self-sufficient in critical minerals. This drive for self-sufficiency was coupled with a push to become a global leader in mineral processing. Internationally, China pursued a two-pronged approach. It invested heavily in acquiring mining assets abroad, particularly in developing countries rich in mineral resources. Simultaneously, it offered attractive deals to international mining companies, encouraging them to set up processing facilities within China. This approach allowed China to secure both raw materials and processing expertise. This multi-decade strategy has paid off handsomely for China. It now controls the lion's share of global processing capacity for many critical minerals. This control gives China significant leverage in the global marketplace. It also raises concerns about potential supply disruptions. The United States faces a critical vulnerability in its dependence on China for critical minerals. While the U.S. possesses some domestic mineral reserves, its capacity for processing these raw materials into usable forms is woefully inadequate. This lack of domestic processing capacity leaves the U.S. reliant on foreign sources, primarily China. The dependence on China for critical minerals exposes the U.S. to several risks. Firstly, it creates a strategic vulnerability. In times of geopolitical tension or conflict, China could leverage its control over these resources to exert pressure on the U.S. or disrupt its supply chains. This vulnerability is particularly acute in sectors crucial for national security such as defense and aerospace. Secondly, the lack of domestic processing capacity undermines U.S. economic competitiveness. Relying on foreign suppliers for essential materials increases costs and reduces flexibility. It also hinders the development of a domestic industry around critical minerals, costing the U.S. jobs and economic opportunities. Finally, the environmental and social implications of relying on foreign processed minerals are significant. Mining and processing these materials often come with environmental costs. By outsourcing these activities, the U.S. effectively exports these costs to other countries, often with weaker environmental regulations. This reliance raises ethical concerns about the U.S. global responsibility. Section 4. Patchwork Solutions, Current U.S. Efforts and Their Shortcomings. Recognizing the risks of dependence on China, the U.S. has started bolstering its domestic critical mineral supply chains. However, these efforts are piecemeal and insufficient. Current initiatives lack a comprehensive approach. Encouraging private investment faces hurdles like significant upfront costs and long lead times. Another strategy is establishing strategic stockpiles. Stockpiles offer a temporary solution but don't address insufficient domestic processing capacity. A more comprehensive approach is needed, involving significant government investment and streamlined regulations. Section 5. Forging a Resilient Path, a federal critical mineral processing initiative. To counter China's dominance in critical minerals, the U.S. needs a bold strategy. A federal initiative backed by government investment is essential to boost domestic production. Focus areas include building processing capacity and workforce development. Financial incentives and streamlined permits are crucial. Investing in education and training programs is key. Innovation in processing technologies will give the U.S. a competitive edge. Section 6. The imperative of global engagement, cooperation amidst competition. While strengthening domestic production is crucial, the U.S. cannot achieve critical mineral security in isolation. International cooperation is essential to diversify supply chains and reduce dependence on China. This requires a multi-pronged approach that balances strategic competition with the need for collaboration. Firstly, the U.S. should strengthen partnerships with allied countries that possess significant mineral reserves or processing capabilities. Canada, Australia, and Japan are all key partners in this regard. Joint ventures, technology sharing, and coordinated investment can help create more resilient and diversified supply chains. Secondly, the U.S. should engage with developing countries rich in mineral resources. Many of these countries lack the infrastructure and expertise to develop their own mining and processing industries. The U.S. can provide technical assistance, capacity building, and investment to support sustainable development of these resources. Thirdly, the U.S. should actively participate in international forums to shape global norms and standards for the critical mineral sector. This includes working within the World Trade Organization to address unfair trade practices and ensure a level playing field. Engaging with China within these forums, while acknowledging the competitive dynamics, is also important. Section 7. Securing America's future investment for economic and national security. Securing a reliable and resilient supply of critical minerals is not merely an economic imperative. It is fundamental to U.S. national security. The technologies that underpin America's military prowess, economic competitiveness, and technological leadership all rely on these essential materials. Failing to address this challenge is akin to neglecting the foundations of American power. Investing in domestic critical mineral production and processing will create jobs, boost economic growth, and enhance national security. It will reduce America's reliance on China, a strategic competitor that has demonstrated its willingness to use its control over these resources for geopolitical leverage. The U.S. has the resources, the ingenuity, and the technological prowess to overcome this challenge. What is needed is the political will and the strategic vision to make this a national priority. A secure and prosperous future for the United States hinges on its ability to break free from its dependence on China and forge a new path toward critical mineral security.